and gentlemen.
Welcome to the show. It's Movie Wire time. Oh, the Movie Wire. Bring the firing squad. Bill, Justin. Give the finger or laugh or smile. It's time to find out. No more waiting. So here we go. The Sultan of Cinema. The gumshoe of review. Here is Justin Henson. Let's start the show. Let's go.
Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Let's welcome to this week's edition of the Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We've got a big show this week. We have 3 brand new movies to review, with 2 playing in theaters and 1 early review hitting theaters at the end of this month. This week on the show, when Masters Unite, a new legacy begins, in this early review of Karate Kid Legends that hits theaters May 30th. Are you a friend of Frendo? I'm sure fucking not. In A Clown in a Cornfield. And finally, if you screw with Deathlands, things can get very messy. Life is a death trap in Final Destination Bloodlines. We've got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows, a roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire Podcast. We need people like me.
The Wire.
And here we go.
A fading Midwestern town in which Frendo the Clown, a symbol of success, reemerges as a terrifying threat in Clown in a Cornfield.
This is what I wanted to show you. Isn't it cool?
Yeah, it is really cool. Where'd you get it from?
I'm OG Kettle Springs, baby. I got all kinds of stuff.
Does it work?
Try it.
Look out!
They're really big on tradition around here.
Every year, there's this parade where everyone gathers around the Frendo float.
Frendo.
It's the clown on all the Bay Pen corn syrup labels. He's practically a local legend.
Smile, silly girl. You're about to become a sensation.
Be careful who you hang out with. There's some real weirdos at this town.
Yeah, 6. Yeah, very funny, man.
Hey, Ginger! You okay? There's a psycho dressed up like Frendo, trying to kill us! Call 911!
Where's the button, Jen? What is this? What is
What kind of phone is this?
Now, I'm gonna take you through a journey of the making of Clown in a Cornfield, one that is most likely fictional, but makes the most sense to me. Now, let's close our eyes and picture it. Let's time travel back to the 1990s, where NSYNC and Backstreet Boys are playing in the background, where our writers Carter Blanchard, Adam Caesar, and our director and writer Eli Craig wrote Clown in a Cornfield during the time of its peak, where 30, 40-year-olds are playing teenagers in a formulaic teenage slasher film. But the clowns and the material didn't showcase the sexy 30-year-olds playing teenagers enough. So Clowns in a Cornfield was locked away in a studio basement. The script stayed dormant in that basement or storage room for decades. Until now, where independent studios are scrambling for something to push to theaters. Suddenly, a beam of light emerges from the doorway of that basement or storage closet, whatever the fuck it is, it really doesn't fucking matter. Of forgotten scripts, and as the door opens, the Shudder logo appears. A burst of light breaks through that door, a branding force that's dedicated its past to streaming horror films. It stood up in the darkness as a vibrant hero and said, "I will buy you, I will release you." And as the Shudder retreated from the doorway, holding a script called Clown in a Cornfield, it suddenly whispered, "Now, my dear recycled script, we just need to make you feel culturally current, add a feeling of nostalgia, and piggyback on the recycled premise and slasher formula that is slowly making its way back. But take all the fucking fun away from it." Now, with the new I Know What You Did Last Summer film coming this year, this is a movie that's going to tap into those that are flocking to theaters to see just another recycled slasher film. Now, we have seen some films this year that just scream at bare minimum fun factor and looking to self-realize what they are. But the ending result is that they bring all the elements to have potential fun, but they just aren't very fun. One of the movies this year that comes to mind is the more recent Death to a Unicorn that inserts shocking death moments and some mild, witty, uninspired dialogue, and it calls it a day. Clowns in a Cornfield, we get the same problem. As the movie does feel like it was dusted off from a script written in the 90s, but somebody went through and made a couple hours of edits to insert dialogue to make it feel current and match the cultural society beat. But our writer's attempt to be current feels forced, to feel sloppy, and almost like our writers were told to step out of the meeting and come back in an hour with a new script that inserts stabs at our current generation of youth and stabs at adults adapting to change. And of course, you need relatability factor. So add goddamn topics and characters that covers that as well. But don't spend more than 5 minutes on the add-ins. What is so upsetting about this is merely that it feels thrown in. All the things I just listed. I don't have a problem with it, but what I do have a problem with is making it feel thrown in, making it feel lazy, and making it feel like it's not relevant. Everything they put into this script that seems out of place, it doesn't feel relevant because our writers and our director don't make it relevant, where it actually takes us out of the fun factor. I can respect Clowns in a Cornfield for the audience it's trying to appease, but it steers too far off course where it takes away from the fun factor and energy that most of the movie does have. The movie stars Katie Douglas as Quinn, who moves to a small town in Missouri with her dad, Dr. Maybrook, played by Aaron Adams, after her mother passes away. Quinn meets a group of teens that the town deems as the Trouble Kids, which in all honesty is a refreshing visual, not to see the stereotypical bad kids that are dressed in a way to look bad or to kind of present themselves as being bad. Instead, this is where the current aspect does work. This group of kids are online content creators that make a bunch of YouTube videos for the dark history of the town, involving the mascot of Bay Pen corn syrup, called Frendo, where the factory burned down and Frendo now haunts. The town blames this group of kids for the factory burning down. This includes the son of Arthur Hill, played by Kevin Durand, whose grandfather founded the town. Arthur Hill's son, Cole, played by Carson McCormick, is the target to anything these kids do wrong. And again, I go back to the stereotypical kids. What I really did appreciate is the Cole character, is that this kid doesn't follow the stereotypical renegade talking back kind of character. He comes across as a good kid, and sometimes too honest. This is a film that never stereotypes our characters from films past, and helps with the fun guessing game the movie presents. And that's one thing this movie, again, I appreciated for. Now, when it comes to Clowns in a Cornfield, there will be no argument for me that our director and co-writer Eli Craig brings the energy here and pays homage to slasher films of the 90s, but where he and the other writers' fault is not having any bite to the additional topics or twists, if you will. And I know I'm tiptoeing around some of these added topics, not to give the movie away, just FYI. This film does a great job at giving us multiple motives with our characters where we can't pinpoint right away. It presents every cliche motive it can on screen. Every cliche motive we've seen from films past, We see it here, and it treats the audience or the viewer with the feel that it's just going to be another generic slasher film. But the difference here is that we have multiple motives from films past to take us in multiple guessing directions. And this is what Clown in a Cornfield did smart. It took me in a guessing game of, even though I can see all these generic cliche moments and these motives, it made me think through this movie that I recognize the cliche moments, but what motive are they going to pick? Which path are they gonna go? We've seen it all before, and Clowns in a Cornfield recognizes it can't really add anything new to the motives or the plot or the story, so it's just gonna present cliche moments and almost have us guess, what path is this movie gonna take? And how are they gonna execute it? These are the aspects that actually do work. It doesn't stereotype itself, it recognizes cliche moments, and it actually uses it as a tool, as motivation for the viewer to follow along with the story, as a complete guessing game of pure cliche. And by the time we get to the climax, it wasn't a blow me out of the water kind of climax, but it still was a surprise, even though I guessed it about, I would say, before the third act. All of these aspects are all fine and dandy, but the movie does have issues. When we randomly insert things and try and make it current without exploration or at least some fun dialogue to self-identify what it's trying to do, this is where it feels lazy and sloppy, where studios got involved to say, we need relatability, we need a hook, we need whatever it may be. So this is where the film actually lacks. It tries to do much when it comes to being current, without identifying itself that it's already doing a great job. Now, Clown in a Cornfield is a crowd movie, and during kill scenes, our filmmakers know this. The movie does have fun with itself in some moments, but where it really faults is, even though it nails the crowd-pleasing kill scenes, it never has fun with the dumb decisions our characters make, or lingering questions that's obvious. For example, like having a party with 100+ people, and then a killer comes into scene, and all 100 people are gone except for our main characters. I get this is a cliche moment from films past, but this is where the dialogue really could have had fun with itself, to self-identify, to have a forte to the fun factor. Not only that, but it does leave a hole in the climax that it could have had fun with itself, where obviously it's setting itself up for a sequel, but that was a moment too that could have had fun with itself. This movie tries to self-identify, but in some pivotal moments, it misses a great opportunity to really have fun with itself. All these multiple missteps of opportunities to really make this movie stand out, it's missed, and instead it skips over the potential to just become a victim of its own genre. Clowns in a Cornfield has its moments of being a turn your brain off and have some fun with it in a bigger crowd, but in moments where it could have really shined, it falls victim to do what we can tell it didn't want to be, which is a generic slasher film. It places nods to slasher films past, but this is thanks to the direction. Now, I normally don't say this when it comes to slasher films, because slasher films are a unique breed, but the dialogue really doesn't help this movie on where we can tell it wants to go. And I'll just finish the review with this, is that Kevin Durand is an underrated actor. I'm giving Clown in a Cornfield 2.5 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now. Be there and be square in the Minecraft movie that didn't grab the mind and has junked up my social media feed to frustration, receiving 2 stars. And if I fucking hear Lava Chicken one more time, this movie goes down to 1 star. The fairest of them all is the tagline, but the internet didn't think so. It's Snow White. That actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't good, but it was good enough for 2 stars. Anthony Hopkins plays a cat and mouse game with Bill Skarsgård in a locked luxury vehicle in Locked, which in the moment was entertaining until the climax, where given the 2 fine actors, we should have gotten more, receiving 2.5 stars. The future favors the brave, and the brave was the ones that actually bought a ticket to yet another meh Marvel movie in Captain America Brave New World, receiving 2 stars. Human Traffickers Beware. It's another Jason Statham movie that we all know what's gonna happen in Working Man. here's a hint. He beats up and kills a lot of people. Working Man received 2 stars. Porky Pig and Daffy Duck are Earth's only hope in their first big screen team-up in The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie that was as loony as it was touching and entertaining, receiving 3.5 stars. He's dying to save mankind in Mickey 17 that consistently battles itself for substance over spectacle, receiving 2.5 stars. When the odds are unbelievable, show the world you're unbreakable in The Unbreakable Boy that actually shows vulnerabilities in humanity, and that makes this a hopeful and happy tearjerker, receiving 3 stars. Everyone dies, and that's fucked up in The Monkey, in which I wish I would have said it's fucked up more in this movie, receiving 2.5 stars. And finally, meet Ethan Kane. He can't feel pain in Novocaine. That after we get the premise, the film doesn't do anything with it but becomes just a novelty, receiving 2 stars. You can check out those reviews of my previous episodes, and while you do, don't forget to hit follow and subscribe. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Now, before I get into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that's become one of my weekly listening routines to give me a mental break from the stress of work, and that's with J&K over the Fuck My Work Life podcast. Make sure to follow and subscribe. The link to that show will be in the description of this episode. But let's hear from J&K over the Fuck My Work Life podcast now.
Have you ever had a bad day at work?
Well, the Fuck My Work Life podcast is perfect for you.
Host J&K share listeners' entertaining stories from the workplace, which may have you thinking you don't have it so bad after all.
Find Fuck My Work Life on your favorite podcast platform.
After Kung Fu prodigy Li Fong relocates to New York City, he attracts unwanted attention from local karate champion and embarks on a journey to enter the ultimate karate competition. With the help of Mr. Han and Daniel Russo in this early review of Karate Kid's Legends that releases in theaters May 30th.
You want to talk about it?
My mom wants us to leave everything behind.
Sometimes it is the only way to move forward.
You come to America. New rules. New school. No fighting. You make any friends?
Yeah, I did. One.
What's his name?
Mia?
You study karate or something?
Kung Fu. Used to. I don't do any of that anymore.
Yeah, you're clearly over it.
Who's your friend?
Connor, don't start.
You really want to do this?
You can't step to guys like him. He wins the 5 boroughs every year. It's the biggest tournament in the city.
In life, you have only one question. Is it worth fighting for it or not?
So we're just supposed to let him fight. So that he can end up like his brother.
So that he does not end up like his brother. Lee means to me what you meant to Sensei Miyagi. I want Lee to learn Miyagi karate.
I'm sorry, Mr. Han. I wish I could help you.
You will.
I'm not coming to New York.
I will see you in the Big Apple. Sensei La Russo.
Let's make a Karate Kid.
You have a foundation of Kung Fu.
We're going to build upon that with karate.
Ancient way.
Miyagi way. There's 2 of them.
Focus!
This represents the history between the 2 families. 2 branches, 1 tree. This is why I came to train here. Remember what you're fighting for.
When you understand that, you'll be ready.
When I first saw the trailer to Karate Kid Legends, it was an obvious nostalgia grab. But I didn't care. There is nothing that says crowd pleaser than a film that surrounds itself about an underdog taking out some morally challenged characters. You add that with 2010's Karate Kid with Jackie Chan's Mr. Han and 1984's Ralph Macchio's Daniel Russo, and some other pieces of nostalgia that I will leave for those that want to see it. With all of this in the mix, you have a recipe for a perfect weekend of fun at the movies that, in theory, will at least aim to please vast audiences. So walking into Karate Kid Legends, I was bought in. I was bought in for just the mere fact to see a movie that will at least add fun factor, the nostalgic factor, with an emotional element of rooting for the underdog once again. I even prepared myself for the same old recycled formula that we've seen from these movies time and time again, of a boy that gets beat up, boy that wants to get the girl, boy wants redemption, boy learns life lessons through karate, bully learns lessons not to underestimate the underdog, and then the underdog to go into the climax to win the day. Now, do we get all that I listed above? Mostly yes, but what the movie lacks is what made the previous film successful to support the formula. We had stakes, proper villain, and the most important piece, heart. Heart to support all of it. Even though we do have fun moments, there are some chuckles, there are some elements that do scream fun factor. There are some enjoyable moments, but these fun moments are far and few in between. Karate Kid Legends leads us in the first hour to something where I thought the movie was going to take us on, into a familiar but fresh feeling territory with our new Karate Kid, Lee Fong, played by Ben Wang, who moves to New York with his mother, played by Ming-Na Wen, after a tragic event. In New York, this is where Fong meets love interest, played by Sadie Stanley, and her dad, Victor, played by Dawson's Creek, Joshua Jackson. Victor and his daughter own a New York pizza joint, who are in debt with the wrong people. And this is the point I really felt old, seeing Joshua Jackson, the old mighty duck with gray stubble, in a Karate Kid movie. This feeling of oldness did distract me and made me so sad for a while, until Jackson becomes shirtless and started to become a badass from Lee Fong training him to integrate his boxing skills and adding karate skills. Now, this in theory should have made me feel better, but this actually made me feel older and worse. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the movie. This is the part of the film in the beginning hour. This is an element that does work and could have driven this movie into a feeling of familiar freshness. But then this is where things go dreadfully wrong, where our writer Bob Lieber from Goosebumps 2, Peter Rabbit, and Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, we can feel that Lieber gets bored with this and pivots to transition that just feels thrown in and attempts to punch us in the gut to a feeling of nostalgia. This is where Karate Kid Legends pivots to almost a completely different movie, where it force feeds us nostalgic characters and witty one-liners to get us the artificial feeling of fun through meeting of an old friend of Mr. Miyagi's and Kung Fu master Mr. Han and Mr. Miyagi's old student Daniel Russo to help him train Mr. Han's student in the art of karate the Miyagi way. This is a movie that should have promoted the fun factor, and we do get moments, but the movie goes off rails when it comes to pacing. It moves super quick, and we don't take the time to really appreciate what we're seeing on screen. Now, as we get into the back half of the movie, this is where our characters team up to win a tournament against a rival that spends most of his screen time just giving dirty looks to the camera. This is where Lieber shows his writing flaws, especially with his previous works of simplicity of family films. We almost needed a disclaimer in the beginning saying, my name is Rob Lieber, I'm the writer, and you all know these damn characters, you all know what's going to happen, so I'm just going to spend the first 50 pages or so giving you the feeling of something new, but then I'm going to do what I want to fucking do, and what I think you want, which is give you a movie that feels familiar. It's like watching all the Karate Kids on fast forward, so I can assure that we get Russo and Mr. Han delivering one-liners in a contrasting way. Then I'm going to throw in the name Miyagi, that way you can feel all good and soft inside. But warning, it's all artificial. There's no emotional substance to it, other than Lieber crossing his fingers that the nostalgic visual is enough, so you can visually feel good on what you're looking at, but by the end of the film, you feel empty. And you know what? This may have worked to better success years ago if the show Cobra Kai wasn't present. But the nostalgic shock factor or wonder is long and gone because we've already seen it. The back half of the movie, last hour of the movie, it goes full speed ahead with almost ignoring the first hour of the film, except our love interest, again played by Stanley. But this focuses mainly on training for a new tournament against Fong's rival. And this final tournament is set on top of a skyscraper's rooftop. Why? Who in the fuck has the common sense to say, let's have a kung fu tournament with tons of people on top of a fucking skyscraper? Those fucking elevators must have been a nightmare with the 500 plus people that's sitting on a fucking rooftop. You know why? Because our director, Jonathan Entwistle, wants to at least make the movie look good, and he has a budget to use up, of course. And we can tell Entwistle is like a kid at a candy store with his direction, since this is the first big screen release in theaters of his. Actually, it's the first full-length feature ever. He almost treats the viewer like we can't comprehend a formula that we have seen time and time again, or he is trying to keep it upbeat and current. For example, let me take you back to the original film, or any goddamn sports movie. We have the soundtrack. We have a good, enticing soundtrack. We have the stakes that we care about. We have the back and forth worry of our underdog is going to win, even though we know he is. We also get spectators' reactions, the camera on the scoreboard. These elements build those stakes. Here with this director, this is how he builds stakes. We get pop-up comic book Mortal Kombat graphics to visually show us points given for every hit. And even to make us feel dumber, we get a graphic that pops up that says, "Now fight."
Round 1. Fight!
Every time there's a fight that comes. Even though we are in a karate tournament, our fighters have their fists up, they're in their corners. Why in the fuck do you think we need a graphic to tell us our characters are about to fight? It's like watching Sesame Street, Blue's Clues, or Miss Rachel had to tell us to put blocks in.
Hello, peekaboo. That's such a fun game.
I can picture the wheels turning, saying, you know we have done karate tournaments in the same places before, but what we haven't done, get this, a fucking skyscraper rooftop. It doesn't make sense, but it'll look good. And in fairness, it looks good. But then your fucking common sense kicks you in the back of the fucking head, and then you have to wake up from this movie and say, this is stupid. To the point, if they plan on doing a sequel to Legends, somebody at the studio needs to lose Entwistle's number, or else Entwistle will take our Karate Kid tournament into fucking space. Karate Kid Legends is more of a frustrating movie than it is a bad movie, because half the movie, it has good dialogue, it has good build, it has good characters and performances I actually really liked. But in the moment, right when it happens, it's like a light switch when it goes into nostalgia mode. It loses the dialogue, it loses the build, it gets cartoonish, and this is where it loses me, which is hard for me to do. This movie solely depends on just looking at characters like a sideshow versus giving them any substance or emotional stake. Where when we actually get to the final fight, I didn't care going into it, but I was hoping for at least some concerned stares from the audience, some motivational moments, some uplifting seconds, something to get me to care. I was hanging on to this movie for each and every minute, hoping to give me at least a climax to care. And then as I was waiting, give me something to root for. The ending result, I didn't give a flying fuck about. I was more concerned about the huge crowd and the tons of people on top of a skyscraper rooftop and worried if somebody was going to fall off than our actual tournament. And Entwistle must have used his budget up in all the helicopter or drone shots of rooftops that he couldn't give a proper emotional ending, with shots of the crowd that felt real and had real stakes. Karate Kid Legends, at the end of the day, has some good performances, especially by Ben Wang and Joshua Jackson, in which I wish the movie would have gone all in on the first half of the movie and where it could have taken these two characters. The first half is better than the second half because it also has better action choreography, which is impressive. Watching Ben Wang was like watching a younger Jackie Chan in some sequences. We can see the fun factor in his performance and when he's doing kung fu and karate. But this is a movie that lacks heart, emotional stakes, and character build, and trades it in for just cheap nostalgia. I'm giving Karate Kid Legends 2 stars.
Fatality.
Plagued by a reoccurring violent nightmare, a college student returns home to find the one person that can break the cycle and save her family from the horrific fate that awaits them in Final Destination, Bloodlines. Drinks all around.
Family, you don't get to pick the one you get. Just gotta love the one you got.
I always knew this day would come.
I got it.
I don't think you got it.
I held him off for years.
Charlie, get up here.
He's a relentless son of a bitch. Won't stop till he finishes the job. Death is coming for our family.
I said, oh, 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 oh.
Grandma, what's happening to us? Years ago, I had a premonition that started it all. I saw what death was about to do. I saved a lot of lives that night.
Everyone needs to get off the dance floor!
Lives that were never meant to be saved. But death doesn't like it when you mess with his plans. This book, it will show you everything you need to know to keep our family safe.
It all started with Grandma. Death is coming for us because we were never supposed to exist. Watch out!
Only by embracing death will it pass you by.
Maybe Death's not actually coming for our family. Because that would be crazy.
Good luck.
It's been about 14 years since we've seen a Final Destination movie hit theater in 2009's Final Destination 5. 14 long years of what we deemed back then as shock kills, kills that made you squirm in your seat in anticipation to how somebody was going to die. Now comes a clever revisit that I guess we can consider more of an in-between sequel and reboot film. And I don't know if we can call it a legacy sequel, even though we do get an appearance from Tony Todd, who has been in previous Final Destination movies, who sadly passed away in November of 2024. This was his final performance, and I have to say, it was a little bit of an emotional experience that he was sick during this time. We almost get a self-realization, which actually opens up this movie to a bigger emotional element that really does kind of tie in it was a beautiful tribute to Tony Todd, and I appreciate this movie taking the time to really say the final goodbye. And I will leave the details for you to experience by yourself. But from what I've read is Tony Todd actually penned his own farewell, which makes this a sweet kiss to his final picture. Bloodlines ties in the premise of films past with a new catapult of a deeper story surrounding family. Now, when I say a deeper story, I say that in the loosest terms, more in the standards of the Final Destination films. Now, I have said this countless times on this show and while I'm reviewing films. It's all about whether or not the filmmakers execute on a clear intent of giving the intended reaction out of the audience to make it a successful film. And Final Destination Bloodlines is going to make me eat those words. My heart says no, my mind says more, and my stomach feels like it wants to throw up. Our writer guide music from last year's Abigail, the Scream 5 and 6 movies, and Ready or Not, along with writer Laura Laurie Evans Taylor. They know how to deliver on feeding what this kind of audience wants. We have especially seen this from Busiek's work in the last few years. His writing knows how to turn something dark, scary, or horrific and make us laugh at ourselves, along with our directors from 2018's Freaks, Zach Lipinski and Adam B. Stein. The style of Bloodlines screams campy fun that these two directors are well versed in, since most of their work is low budget or straight to streaming. But the difference here is that they have a bigger budget and some writers that know how to make an audience squirm in their seats with these pure horrific ideas. In the past, we got 5 previous sequels from this premise of people cheating death to only go on the run attempting to cheat death again. But here, as I said earlier in the review, our writers actually add some simplistic stakes other than just dying. It adds family to it, where we don't just have death after death. Well, yes, we do. But this is different, because we actually get the family willing to fight for each other, and we add that as a layer of stakes, where it adds an element of guessing who was up next. It's a clever premise for a film franchise that recycled the same 5 ideas all over again, and to an extent, I would applaud this movie for not doing a full reboot or a full sequel, but I won't, because I don't want that on the record and I would hate myself in the morning. Now, I have seen a lot of movies in the last 40 plus years, and I can't remember the last time I had to look away from the screen. That is until the first 20 minutes of Final Destination Bloodlines, and almost every kill after that. Now, I will be very vague in my next sentence, not to give specific details or items to spoil the scene, because each of these scenes should be experienced at first hand. But it wasn't until we get a scene with body piercings, yes, that was plural, piercings, and a big magnet that I found myself needing to take a break to go to the restroom and take a breath. Take a wild guess what body piercing was my final straw to take a break. I'll let you fill in that blank. Bloodline goes all in. It commits to stay memorable and shine above the rest of the previous films in the most gruesome way. Hands down, this is mission accomplished to be the most brutal Final Destination movie to date when it comes to the kills. To the point I couldn't help but laugh out loud to the ludicrousy of some of this stuff. And I wasn't alone here. I attended an early screening and the theater was packed. And I wasn't alone in my outburst. There were some kills that ended with a mix of loud laughs followed by bellowing screams that bursted throughout the theater, along with a few walking out. Bloodlines isn't just a disgusting and repulsive movie, but it's a stressful one as well. It sets itself up for us to anticipate being grossed out. So we are sitting and just waiting as we get the group of teens together, or adults, whatever it may be, and then death sets a scene of what's going to happen. But to whom and how? Our directors Lipinski and Stein use each scene as their playground. We can see what's coming. We can see the tools happening on screen. And when our directors go in for that kill, it's so overly done that it's hard not to laugh. And that's what separates this from pure mindless gore to filmmaking with intent. Our writers and directors fully knew the audience and the film they wanted to make. Their intent is clear, and the execution is almost flawless. But if I have to review a movie that's solely talking about the kills, that does end in a problem, because the kills outdo themselves to the point we want that pesky story to hurry up so we can get to the next one. And when we are watching these characters on screen, that's what slows this movie down, is that the in between the kills. There's not a lot of interesting things that we see except the family premise, but that is merely what it is just the idea it presents. It does attempt to give us moments of emotion and intrigue, but we can tell that our filmmakers didn't want to put too much focus on that to take away from the main event. And that goes for the characters too. There's nothing really for our characters to work with. The characters speak and move throughout scene to scene with nothing different than what we saw from previous films. The characters and the story will be a forgotten memory. The kills are gonna be what's at top of mind, not anything else in the movie. And when Bloodlines finally hits streaming, you know most of you that press play will merely just fast forward to the kill scenes. You sick bastards. Final Destination Bloodlines has story flaws, of course, but to use my own words against me, it's all about the intent to gain a reaction, and Final Destination Bloodlines succeeds in that aspect in giving an audience a good time. I feel dirty saying it, but I had a bloody great time at Final Destination Bloodlines, and for that, I'm giving Final Destination Bloodlines 3 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of the Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.
Let the credits roll. We say farewell. Join us next time. We'll have more tales to tell.